I call Pete Wishart to move the next motion.
Thank you ever so much, Sir Christopher, and it's really good to renew our acquaintance after all those years that we spent together in Scottish Affairs Committee, and can congratulate you on your recent knighthood. I also refer to my register of interest, entry in the register of members' interest. Mr Chope, this should be the easiest thing in the world, simply to buy a ticket to go and see a rock concert. Now, I've got you down as a grime fan, and like when you trying to secure your Stormzy ticket, it should be very much straightforward to you, Sir Christopher. But swimming through shark-infested waters would probably be an easier and safer thing to do than to try and buy a ticket for a popular musical show. From your first click of the mouse, Sir Christopher, your quest to secure a ticket, you will be exposed to any number of touts, profiteers and spivs determined to exploit you and to maximise their return at your expense. You will come into contact with an out-of-control, all-consuming rip-off machine that exists from the artist management and promoter all the way down to the venue and ticketing agency, all the way down to the tout and the unsuspecting fan. It's a business model designed to maximise profits and exploit its consumer base, and it has become one of the biggest consumer crises that we face in this country today. Quite simply, Sir Christopher, our ticket infrastructure is simply broken beyond irredeemable repair. And let's have a little cursory look about how this has been compiled into design, because touting's always gone on. It was probably a pastime in the Colosseum in the Roman Empire. Certainly as a young lad trying to secure my Clash tickets, I would see the touts outside the venues selling the tickets for a few pound extra in order to get in. So it's always happened. But the way it's designed just now is almost on an industrial scale, riddled with all sorts of pernicious arrangements and invidious relationships. It was probably defined in 2010 when the largest promoter, live promoter in the world, Live Nation, bought the largest ticket agency in the world, Ticketmaster, creating something close to a monopoly on the live music scene. And Ticketmaster just so happens to own two of the biggest secondary sites out of the big four, Get Me In and Seatwave, where the touts like to do most of their business. What has therefore been created is a vertically integrated model that works almost in perfect partnership and symbiosis, where everybody gets their cut and their share. What happens, Sir Christopher? I'll try and describe it as far as I can best understand it. Live Nation is the largest music promoter in the world, ensures that venues employ Ticketmaster to sell the tickets for the artists that they represent. Tickets then go on sale. They're then hoovered up on an industrial scale by the touts and the scalpers. These tickets are then put up for sale on the secondary sites owned by Ticketmaster at hugely inflated prices by the touts. Of course I give way to the Honourable.
Thank the Honourable Gentleman for giving way. The Honourable Gentleman will be aware I've taken a long-standing interest in this issue. And does he agree with me that the measures announced by the UK Government to ban the so-called, to outlaw the so-called ticket bots can't come soon enough and have been too long in the waiting?
Well, I'm grateful to my honourable friend because she's absolutely utterly right. And I listened to the CMA's presentation at the all-party group hosted by the honourable lady last week. And the measures are far too slow and they need to get a move on with this. Now I'm going to come back to this because it's very important about what the government are actually doing and the lethargy at the heart of their response. But I think it's trying to describe to you how all this sort of works. So we've got Live Nation putting on the shows, Ticketmaster selling the tickets at the venues, all hoovered up by the touts. They then go on sale on the secondary sites owned by Ticketmaster. Google is then incentivised to promote these secondary sites by placing at the top of their searches. So what happens in this perfect model is that the touts get their hit in the secondary sites. Google gets a share, but critically, Ticketmaster Live Nation secured their secondary cut from their secondary sites. Of course I give way to the Honourable Lady.
And I'm very grateful to the Honourable Member for giving way and also for bringing this very important debate. We've had numerous debates over the years, but this one is extremely very timely with the bot law just coming in last week and the meeting we had with CME. He mentions Google. Does he agree with me that most people are driven to these sites by Google. And so does he agree that Google have a role to play in not giving them top billing and also ensuring that consumers realise these are secondary markets, not primary?
Absolutely. And what Google actually do is they breach their own certification rules that suggest that they have to make sure that they're designated as secondary sites. So Google have a big part and role to play in this. And it's absolutely right that she mentions them, and they're part of all of this. But this is a model, Sir Christopher, that's almost elegant in its exploitative design. And last year, Live Nation made over £1 billion from their secondary sites alone. There's also good anecdotal evidence, which I'll try to relay under parliamentary privilege, to suggest that the players at the very top of the music business tree, at management level and at promoter level, who have a working relationship with some of the biggest touts in the world, just to ensure that the wheels and the cogs of this huge exploitative machine are properly oiled and is working at maximum efficiency. Everywhere throughout this broken infrastructure, relationships and models of exploitation like this are the norm. StubHub, another one of the big four. This is owned now by eBay, which they purchased in 2007. And they now have a global partnership with AEG, who just so happen to operate the O2 in the Wembley Arena. This means, by default, the parasite-infested StubHub is the official resale partner of the O2 in Wembley Arena, two of the most prestigious venues in the whole of the United Kingdom. The daddy of them all, though, Sir Christopher, is the truly appalling exploitative Viagogo. Now, I don't know what arrangement Viagogo have with Google, but if you were to look for your Stormzy ticket, Sir Christopher, you would be directed to Viagogo in order to try and purchase this. Our ticket infrastructure, then, is a broken monolith of misery where tech giants are in cahoots with touts, who are in cahoots with the promoters and managers. But I want to spend just a couple of minutes on Viagogo. How a company that exists exclusively to exploit and to rip off is allowed to continue to operate is simply beyond me. And if there's anybody watching from home, do not buy tickets from Viagogo. Go nowhere near them. You will be ripped off totally. Do not touch them. Now, I had the misfortune at the meeting last week to listen to the victims of Viagogo. This is a company that is so exploitative that a self-help group has emerged, and they have thousands and thousands of members. These are ordinary, honest people who were just trying to secure a ticket for a friend, for a grandchild, for a rare treat for themselves. They had no reason to believe that the simple fact of trying to get a ticket, they would be exposed to such shark-infested waters and such danger. Why would they? Here was nice Mr. Google directing them to their sites in order to find these tickets. That is where the horror starts, when the victims of Viagogo are exposed to all sorts of hard sells, tricks and exploitative practices. I'll give way one last time to the Honourable Lady.
And it's just because I want him to join me in congratulating the amazing work of Claire Turnham, who set up Victim of Viagogo, originally as the victim to try and get money back for herself. And then after that long fight, put the information out there to help others. And she's helped thousands of people and has received hundreds of thousands of pounds in refunds for them. Will he join me in welcoming her work?
No hesitation in joining the Honourable Lady, who I also commend for her diligent work over the years in chairing the all-party group. And it was in my speech to congratulate Claire Turnham, who I did meet last week and who has done a fantastic job. Not only that, she has managed to reclaim thousands and thousands of pounds for the victims of Viagogo. But why should she have to do this? You know, it's not the job of individuals, drummers, guitarists and singers, to protect the public. It's the minister's job. That's your job, Minister. It should be you that's protecting the people, not people like Claire Turnham who are having to do this difficulty. And I heard the emotional impact of being ripped off and realising the stress and difficulty it is to try and reclaim the money that people have been swindled out of. I heard that health, relationships and work have all seriously suffered. And for me as a musician, Sir Christopher, I heard of people being put off attending gigs for the rest of their life because of the experience at these parasites and these companies that exist solely
The
to
honourable
rip people
gentleman
off.
give way.
I will give way for the last time.
Thank
today.
the honourable gentleman. He's been very generous with his time. I just wanted to put it to the honourable gentleman. He talks about the vast numbers of people that are exploited by these big businesses moving in and hoovering up tickets. Does he agree with me that it looks like the only possible way to stop this is to legally cap the price of resale tickets?
Well, I've got an even better and more elegant solution to the Honourable Lady, and I'll beg patience as I explain to her, because I think this has to be tackled properly now. There's no point of mucking around and doing this tentatively. We have to really grab the bull by the horn. So if she gives me just a few minutes, I will get onto this. But I just want to explain my renewed interest in this, Sir Christopher, because I know you'll be absolutely fascinated in this. And it was when my former band, Runrig, put on tickets for their last ever concert in Stirling Castle later in this year. Now, it's the last ever concert, so it's obviously going to be popular, and there's no way that that supply would ever satisfy demand. It was going to be a target for the Touts, and so it was. Within minutes of these tickets going on sale, I was inundated with Runrig fans, angry, frustrated, disappointed, just with the experience of trying to secure a ticket. I was provided with screen grabs of tickets available on the secondary site, Get Me In, at 4 times the face value that the secondary site owner, the official agent, Ticketmaster, had just put on sale 12 minutes earlier. 12 minutes earlier. Now, Runrig did absolutely everything possible to spare their fans, the Touts, but it's almost impossible to evade that parasitic reach. Since then, I've watched through disbelieving eyes the misery extended to other musical events that are scheduled to take place this summer. Now, probably the biggest ticket of the year is going to be the Rolling Stones tour, and they're playing at Murrayfield in Edinburgh, a really, really popular show. This was another huge opportunity for the Touts. Again, I saw tickets on sale at 480% over the face value, and there were still face value tickets available, but people were directed through Google to the sites encouraged to buy these things. But credit to the Rolling Stones. And it's a Daily Record, and I want to pay tribute to the Daily Record here today. They have been absolutely fantastic, particularly journalist Mark McGivern, who has pursued this resolutely. And they reported that the Stones were actually offered a cash incentive to put their tickets on sale to an agency who have pretty invidious relationships with secondary sites. It is to their immense credit that Sir Mick Jagger and Keith Richard turned it down. But doesn't that just demonstrate how far up the chain this reaches? To banned meetings where these issues are discussed, and the total disregard, callous disregard for music fans by those at the very top of the music business. And this is it. Given government inaction, it has been left to the artists and musicians to try and develop solutions to protect their fans. It shouldn't be the job of musicians to protect ordinary people and issues to do with consumer affairs. As I've said, that's the government's job. It's not singers, drummers and guitarists that should be doing that. It is ministers. Now, what bands have attempted to do is to put all sorts of tough terms and conditions on their tickets to try and keep them out of the secondary market. And their artists were looking at even more innovative solutions to protect their fans. And again, I want to pay tribute to artists such as Adele, Ed Sheeran, Noel Gallagher, Bastille, and particularly the Arctic Monkeys, who have deployed a number of anti-touting strategies. But we need government to lead on this. Now, government are doing something, and let's credit them. The Honourable, I don't know which Honourable friend or member suggested it. They're starting to do this. They're now in the process of banning the anonymous bots that hoover up the tickets. And they are now starting to ensure that recalcitrant secondary companies comply with existing law. And at last, the CMA have given notice to Seatwave, Get Me In and StubHub, but they're given 9 months to comply. But the biggest culprit of them all, Viagogo, hasn't even responded to the government, but still the government allows it to do business. And I know we've had the Watterson report, we've had the Consumers Act 2015, but it is regularly broken and ignored and has failed to protect and is tentatively enforced. More stronger action is required. And I say to the Honourable Lady, I question the need for a secondary market at all. Why is there a secondary market? If you can't go to a concert, you've got a ticket, give it back to the venue who could resell it, sell it to somebody who can go. What is wrong with a simple arrangement such as this? Now, we usually hear from people, and we've seen it in a couple of articles, that this is all about tickets finding their natural value, as if it's a sort of stock market where tickets find their real value at the hands of the touts reselling them. What utter tosh and rubbish. And since I've had this debate scheduled, I've even had touts getting in touch with me who say that there's some sort of misunderstood public servants. And they're even set up their own self-help group, and I think it's called the Fair Ticketing Alliance. Now, somebody's going to have to patiently explain to me how snapping up hundreds of tickets, then selling them back at twice, 3 times, 4 times the price is really in the consumer interest. And that is the thing about the touts. They will never stop, and they will always remain one step ahead of all measures to deal with them. This is now a hugely profitable business that will not be given up lightly. But it's what it's doing to live music that concerns me most. This is now threatening all of the music industry. And the anti-tout campaign group, Fanfare Alliance, another group I want to pay tribute to for the excellent work that they're doing through Mark and through Adam, have found that 2/3 of respondents of an opinion poll who paid more than face value for a ticket on a resale site said they would attend fewer concerts in future, while half would spend less on recorded music. The Fanfare Alliance, Sir Christopher, are spot on in concluding that this is doing considerable damage to one of our great export industries, one that we lead the world in, and which supports 150,000 jobs. Now, the government have been reluctant and slow to legislate on behalf of music fans and artists, but they cannot continue to ignore the damage that has been done by this dysfunctional and broken beyond repair infrastructure.
Will I give way on the economic issue?
Very quickly to the Honourable Lady.
I'm very, very lucky to have venues like in my constituency of Glasgow Central, from the Barrowlands right across to the Hydro. But would you agree with me that if people are paying more money for their tickets, there's going to be less money to spend in the economy neighbouring to venues, and cities will lose out as a result?
The Honourable Lady is absolutely right on. There is a dynamic hit in all associated industries and businesses that deal with all this. If money is get put into the hands of the touts, which it has, and also the agencies, it's getting taken out of the hands of the music industry and those that want to do it. So come on, Minister, let's reclaim the music. Let's make going to a live show a safe environment. Let's make buying a ticket a reasonable experience where we're not going to be exposed to these profiteers, these touts and these spivs. It's an exploitative marketplace just now. It is one of the biggest crises that we have in consumer affairs. It is destroying our music industry. It's no good pussyfooting around any longer, and it's time to act. Join with the rest of us here, Minister. Let's reclaim the music and make it safe for fans to buy tickets online.
Question is that this House has considered ticket touting and musical events. Minister.
Thank you, Mr Chope. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, and I congratulate the Honourable Member for Perth and North Perthshire on securing this debate. The Government, along with brilliant groups like UK Music and the BPI, has consistently championed the British music industry and the incredible talent which makes it such a success story and a brilliant export for this country. We've produced the Beatles, the Stones, Adele, Amy Winehouse, so many more. And of course, the live music industry is a vital part of the ecosystem, contributing £1 billion to our economy in 2016. While our live music scene is clearly thriving, it is far from easy for fans to always experience the scene. We have all experienced the frustration of waiting for tickets to go on sale, our fingers hovering over the keyboard, only to find that all the tickets have been mysteriously snapped up in seconds. Given time constraints of this job, I had slightly fallen out of the practice of trying to get tickets for events in recent years, so I was absolutely appalled when I heard about the practices that are now going on from my honourable friend, the member for Selby. Absolutely appalled. What is so frustrating is seeing these tickets reappearing on secondary sites almost instantaneously at the huge markups that have become commonplace. But the secondary market does have a place, and real fans who are sometimes unable to attend should have the means and do have the means of making sure that those tickets not go to waste. But the government recognises that the process of distributing and buying tickets is often this cause for momentous public frustration and concern. And we are determined to crack down on the unacceptable behaviour in the ticketing market and improve fans' chances of buying tickets at a reasonable price. There is absolutely no inertia in the government, and I was sorry to hear the tone of the honourable gentleman's remarks. We are determined to get on top of this, and we have taken recent measures, which I will go through. But before I outline those measures, I'd like to address the specific concerns about the relationship between primary and secondary ticketing sites. Competition is fundamental to this relationship, and competition decisions are made independently of government and of ministers by the Competition and Markets Authority. And I would encourage the honourable gentleman to make his points directly to the CMA. I can assure him there is absolutely no lethargy in the CMA or in government about these matters. So on to the measures that we have already taken. The Consumer Rights Act 2015 imposed a duty on sellers and secondary ticketing facilities to provide certain information about tickets to buyers, such as the face value of the ticket and information about any restrictions limiting the potential use of that ticket. Section 105 of the Digital Economy Act 2017 then introduced a further provision for an additional requirement under the CRA for ticket sellers to provide a unique ticket number where one has already originally been given, and when putting up a ticket for resale. And I'm pleased that this provision is now in force and that some event organisers are looking at how it can be used to improve access and protections for the ticket buying public. I'm also pleased that... Yes, I will give way.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way, and also like to congratulate the member for Perth and North Perthshire for securing this debate. He certainly sold more tickets to his public performances than I ever have. The Minister puts on a very specific point about having a unique identifier for consumers. What consultations have taken place with people actually in the industry and industry experts to make sure this is carried across? Because these events really can be beneficial for our constituencies, especially coming from a constituency like mine where we used to host Tea in the Park.
I thank my honourable friend for his intervention. We are in constant contact with the industry, and my officials have been in touch with the major event organisers, UK Music, to get the message out there that this is a powerful tool that event managers and primary ticketers can use to at least oblige these secondary sites to include the number, the unique number, on anything that they offer up for resale. I'm also pleased, because I had a personal involvement in this in my last job at the Business Department, that last week I laid the draft regulations under Section 106 of the Digital Economy Act for the provision to ban the use of bots and ban people from, for the reasons of profit, for reselling more tickets, purchasing more tickets than event organisers have provided a cap thereof. So that, I'm hoping, will be successful as well. And of course, the legislation has to be properly enforced. So I welcome the CMA's. I will give way one last time.
Christine Jardine.
Thank you very much. I thank the honourable member for giving way. Could the honourable member tell me why it's not the case that the reselling of music venue tickets, which, as we've heard, is hugely damaging to the industry, is not comparable with sports tickets, which is actually illegal to have secondary ticketing on, secondary sales on?
I think the honourable lady is slightly mistaken in that I believe it's only football, professional football that has that protection for historic reasons. The rest of sport is dealt with, as is the music industry.
But why?
I welcomed the CMA's announcement last week as part of its ongoing enforcement investigation that it has secured commitments from 3 of the largest secondary ticketing platforms for additional information to be provided. It will come as no surprise to honourable members present that the one secondary site that has not yet cooperated with this is Viagogo, which is actually controlled from abroad. I believe it's based in Switzerland, which makes it an extra challenge, I would echo the remarks made by the Honourable Gentleman in his opening speech, advising customers not to use their services until they come to, within the law. So the CMA's concerns are all ticketing sites, both secondary and primary, should accept their responsibilities to consumers. The government is also giving approximately £15 million to the National Trading Standards for National and Cross-Boundary Enforcement. And I welcome the NTS announcement at the end of last year that its officers have conducted raids on a number of properties across the UK, resulting in 4 people being arrested under suspicion of breaches of the Consumer Protection from Unfair Trading Regulations 2008. I congratulate National Trading Standards and local trading standards officers on their excellent work. In addition, the Advertising Standards Authority has recently taken action against the main 4 secondary ticketing websites, banning the misleading presentation of pricing information on their websites. Companies will now have to show prices in a clear, transparent way and in an upfront manner before consumers make their purchasing decision, which will hopefully put an end to this drip pricing practice that has been commonplace. So it is clear that this matter is being taken seriously by enforcement bodies, that we are prepared to go after those who flout the law or abuse the ticketing market. And the ticketing industry and online platforms need to take actions themselves, and we are attacking the situation from a number of fronts. Google recently introduced new rules for ticket resellers advertising through its AdWords platform, requiring them to be certified. And to apply for certification, they will need to comply with a number of rules to improve transparency and stop implying that they are a primary or original provider of event tickets. So we're getting at them through Google as well. And industry is becoming increasingly adept at using technology to improve the ticketing experience, exerting greater control over the transfer of tickets through the use, for example, of blockchain and ticketless tickets attached to fans' mobile phones. I will.
I'm very much welcoming what she said, and she's given us the whole sort of plethora of all of the different instruments and laws that we have now. And I feel, as someone who's worked on this for 10 years, that it is all starting to come together. But will she today give us our commitment that she will enter, and I know she has entered into this seriously, but will keep a very close personal eye, because as those of us who fought Viagogo and the secondary market for years, they're slippery characters, and I doubt they are ever going to sort of comply. So I think we'll be back here again in future revisiting this.
Well, I thank the Honourable Lady and I congratulate her for her work over the years and her chairmanship of the all-party group. I will stay across this. I have exactly the same suspicion of particularly the company that we've already mentioned in no uncertain terms, and that they will drag their feet, they will fight all along, and we will have to be across them. And I welcome her involvement, continued involvement in helping us. I also welcome the work that the Society of Ticket Agents and Retailers and Sports Bodies have been undertaking with the CMA to look at ways to ensure terms and conditions are considered fair, and particularly in instances where they were put on sale many months before the performance. I recognise there's no magic bullet to solving the worst excesses of the secondary ticketing market. It requires concerted and consistent effort. But I've laid this effort out as it stands. I thank the Honourable Lady for her comments about how we are pulling together now on a number of strands to deal with the issue. We're making good progress, but I have no doubt there is more to do. We must ensure that the UK is a vibrant place for fans to experience great music.
The question is that this House has considered ticket touting and musical events. As many of the opinions say aye. Of the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.